Welcome back to Unchained, Hope and Healing from Addiction. And I'm here with Erin Lopez. We are so excited to hear Erin's story tonight. So thank you, Erin, for being here with us. And we begin this journey together. We began it, I should say, with a brief overview of the series and Richie's story. And we've been hearing from different people each night. And last night, we heard how to break the chain of distrust. And tonight, we'll continue this journey with learning the fourth breakthrough we must have to experience an unchained life. But first, of course, we want to make sure that everybody's registered. And to register, text Unchained to that number on your screen, which is 534-444-7183. Now, everyone's information is completely confidential and will only be used during this series. Once you've registered, you'll receive a text each day reminding you of that evening's presentation. And to enter the nightly giveaway, same thing, text Unchained to the number on your screen. And we really encourage everyone to register so we can continue to get the word out about our series. Plus, we'd love to know who is tuning in each night. And if anything like last night happens again with our technical difficulties, we can let you know what's going on. So that's another reason why it's nice for you to register, because then we have your number and then we can text saying, hey, it's okay, hang on. And so please register. Each night we'll be giving also away a signed copy of our speaker's book, The Darkness Will Not Overcome. But to enter that, you also text Unchained to the number on your screen. So when you register, you're automatically entered into the drawing for our free giveaway. And this lets us know who is joining us that particular night. So we're super excited that you've been journeying with us. We hope that you continue to. And we do ask you to please make sure you hit that like button and share button. This lets us know that this program is being beneficial to you, and it'll let others know that it's worth watching. Everyone struggles with addiction on some level, and we all know someone who either struggles with addiction or we know someone who knows someone who struggles with addiction. So please help us to get the message out. We want this to be a help to our community. We want this to be a place where people may even hear for the first time, wow, okay, I can have hope. There is hope out there. So again, we're just so excited that you're here, Erin. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
And so start us off by telling us a little bit about your background, where you're from, kind of maybe how you grew up, and then where your struggle with addiction began.
Yeah, so I was born in California, moved up to Washington with my parents, grew up in a 2-parent household, grew up in the Lake Stevens area, graduated high school there. It wasn't till my early 20s or so when my parents had a divorce. That wasn't, a huge deal, but it was part of it. And then just being young and naive and in relationships and not knowing how to really begin a healthy relationship or how to end a relationship, a toxic one, and then just kind of snowballing into another one. And then when you add, you hear people say this all the time, like, oh, I had an injury, and then that's when the pain meds kicked in. And so I was in a toxic relationship. I had been in a motorcycle accident.
Oh, okay.
Where I broke my collarbone,
Oh,
and
my
that's
goodness.
when the pain meds kind of were introduced. And so, yeah, it was just kind of the perfect storm, I think. And being with that particular guy just introduced me to all the wrong people. And experiencing things that maybe I wouldn't normally be experiencing. And I think feeling ashamed of being in those situations, or maybe not even ashamed, really, knowing better.
Yeah.
And that stuff just snowballs. And so
kind of where you feel hopeless and then more shame and then stuff like that. And is that the kind of snowball you're talking about?
The hamster wheel of just stuff. And I think when you do know better, when you grow up and you know better, Because some people don't, right?
Right.
I think it causes more of that shame and more of that guilt than people realize. And so yeah, I mean, it was at first it was just the pain meds, and then introduced almost even by accident. I was so innocent at the time that when somebody had introduced heroin to me, I didn't even know what it was, but I did it.
Wow.
And then the meth came in, and it's just all of just the lifestyle that happens. It just keeps you just trapped in that situation.
Yeah. So you would say that you came from a semi, besides maybe the divorce, pretty stable home. Like there was no reason for you to. It wasn't really until, like you said, you'd been in toxic relationships, and then the injury.
Yeah, I mean, I guess some of the family had some of their own struggles, but I don't feel like that impacted where I ended up.
Got you. So there wasn't like this addiction in the family or anything. This was something that the pain meds opened up.
I think so.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Wow.
for sure.
Now, how long was it that before you realized that you were addicted to the pain meds and that you were using them for more than the pain?
I think there was a particular incident where I think I had lost my keys before an event, and I lost my mind. Like, lost my mind. Like,
Wow.
not the normal temper.
Right.
And so I think that's when I started realizing that I was going overboard with it. And then I kept going back to the doctors and saying that I was in pain. And I'm not saying I wasn't in pain,
Sure.
but I wasn't in enough pain to be going back and getting
Yeah.
more. But they were still prescribing them too. So
Interesting.
so you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but that was, gosh, almost 20 years ago, and things are so much more regulated now.
Yeah. Yeah. So then was it this, because you said that you knew better, was it the social situations that you felt like were dragging you into like the heroin and the meth, or was it like you were like, no, I want to try this, I want to try this, I want to try this, or was it just the social situations that you were kind of in?
Yeah, I think it was more of the social situations, and it was going to the bars and getting. I don't even drink now,
Yeah.
and so it's like I was drinking, and I was drinking way more, and then getting into fights afterwards, and it was just like all of this extra chaos that was going on around me that just kind of kept me kind of trapped in it.
Yeah, trapped in the cycle.
Yeah.
So what issues we've had actually, your last night I was interviewed as being someone that had experienced addiction from a loved one, being in a family affected by that. But other than that, you're our first woman that I've had to interview. And so what are some issues do you see or you've experienced as a female in active addiction? Are there added elements? Are there added issues, for lack of a better, traumas.
Yeah.
Yeah, much better word.
Yeah.
So share a little bit of that with us.
I reached out to some of my female coworkers and kind of asked their opinions, because I don't obviously have every experience of everybody that's been homeless, or there's like these, I don't know, maybe they're not as obvious, but you hear about the sex trafficking and the sex workers. I am so grateful that I don't have that experience, but that is very common. The domestic violence is huge, and it goes both ways, men and women, or male and male, or female and female, whichever it looks like, or intimate partner violence, I guess, right? And always being afraid of like your surroundings, always being afraid, always being on edge, always walking around with 2 knives in my pockets. Something one of my coworkers said as a female that was homeless was that, you're running into issues like not having feminine products.
Yeah.
It's not something that ever crossed my mind.
Yeah.
and maybe not even having the availability to steal something, right?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
but those were kind of the big things that kind of popped out to me was the domestic violence, the sex workers, always being in fear, and even staying in relationships for some safety, right? So maybe it's not the safest, but it's better than getting attacked by maybe multiple people, and
Yes.
maybe you're only being attacked by one person.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, I never thought about that, but you would be in constant fear that, you'd be taken advantage of, and it'd be interesting. I don't know this, and maybe you know that if there's some statistics out there where, in the sex slave,
Hmm.
arena, if they prey on women that they know are addicts,
Yeah.
you know,
Or they create the addict.
yes, I've
Yeah.
definitely heard of that. They create the addict.
Hmm.
Yes, yes, wow. Um, so now, what is it? Share a little bit with us what it is you do, and then how. And you shared a little bit about your coworkers, about how the domestic violence has affected them
Hmm.
or their experience with that. But share with us a little bit about what you do and now.
Yeah. So I work for a company called Ideal Option, and we have one here in Monroe.
Okay, awesome.
It's an outpatient clinic that treats substance use and alcohol use with medication assisted treatment. So if you've
Okay.
ever heard of like Suboxone or Sublocade or Vivitrol, and they are basically medications that um, definitely get you through like those beginning stages. They help ease withdrawal, and they're medications you can continue to use into long-term recovery that help, curb cravings, and it's wonderful.
Wow.
It's wonderful. And so what I do there is I'm a peer outreach specialist, and I basically get to engage the community, whether it's like an organization like Roger with St. Vincent de Paul, or Take the Next Step, or the actual individuals in our community, and go
Wow.
out and talk to them and see if I can engage them in services with us. Or I'm lucky with Ideal Option is that they give me the freedom to connect them with any other services. So it's not like streamlined to them. It's more about helping that individual.
Okay, that is so cool.
It's awesome.
So share with us a little bit how you went from your situation, trying getting involved with the next drug and all of that.
Mhm.
What was your rock bottom, and then what was your turning point to lead you to what you're doing now to help other people?
Um, I've had a few different rock bottoms. And I think the culmination of all of them is what got me to this point. I've had rock bottoms where I was just in Snohomish County Jail. I
Mhm.
had rock bottoms when I was in Utah, and I was going into drug court, or now it's known as adult recovery court, and having to sign a deal that I was going to go spend prison time. That was a rock bottom.
Mm.
I had a rock bottom where my significant other at the time um, was shot and killed.
Mm.
So I lost a really
Oh, so
close
sorry.
friend and spouse to some degree. Um, and this last go around, my rock bottom was my kids being taken from me,
Mm.
and I did have a domestic violence incident with my husband,
Mm.
where he's now in prison for. And
Wow.
so I think that recovery is, some people get it that first go around. Mine had steps to it, and
Yeah.
it had to grow into this. And when I finally got to the point, because there was about a month or so from the time that my husband was gone and my kids were taken, and I think I used for like another month or so.
Mhm.
And I just didn't want that heartache, because I was in a home by myself, isolated. My mom, my dad, everybody's on this side. I was in Spokane,
Mm.
and that isolation, that loneliness, that desperation, being in that house all by myself, gave me time to think about I don't want to live like this.
Mm.
And it was a rough 30 days. But I got myself in my car and I drove over here and I got to treatment. I went to Holman Recovery Center up in Arlington and they're amazing. And I saw the way the people that worked there that were in recovery, I saw the way they moved and I saw how happy they were. And I was like, I want that.
Mm.
And at 4 months clean,
Wow.
I
Wow.
was blessed and got hired over at the Snohomish County Diversion Center.
Wow.
And it created such a strong foundation for what I have in recovery now. Like,
Wow.
and it kept this continuous, I don't want to live like that. I don't want to go through that again. I don't want to feel like that anymore because there's people coming in the door that are right off the streets that own absolutely nothing. They haven't taken a shower in a month.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they have nothing to eat. They just want a cigarette. Like, you know what I mean? And it's just like, man, I just didn't want to be like that no more.
Yeah.
And so here I am.
Wow.
It's been wonderful.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So yeah, you just like no more. And then those opportunities kind of led to then this job that you're at now.
Yeah. Yeah. The diversion center was amazing. But I was living in Linwood. My kids had started school in Monroe. The diversion center's in Everett, and I was doing this big circle multiple times in a day. And I actually applied for this job because of the location and obviously like the type of job that it is. I utilized some of the same medications to get clean. I had a really close relationship with the, what is the right word? Not the community, but I guess that gives the right answer. I just felt like I could convey to them like the experience of using those sorts of medications in their recovery. And I actually didn't get the job, but it came available a few months later.
Cool.
And I was so grateful that I got the opportunity and that I got to be a part of this community and like really get to know everybody that's like, whether they're unhoused or not. It's been awesome.
Wow.
Yeah.
How long have you been there?
I've been here for about 1.5 years with Ideal Option. Yeah.
Oh, so cool.
Yeah.
So then how, with what you do now, how does that help you with your recovery?
I mean, along the same lines, like that's not where I want to go anymore, but I get to have these really special conversations with people in like some of the hardest times that they're going through. And the fact that I get to give back to them, and I always learn something as well. You know what I mean? Like it's a mirror. It reminds me of like where I was, where I don't want to be. And also like when you really talk to somebody, like when they're unhoused, I don't think we give enough people enough credit, right? But they have this whole lifetime of experience and things that they've done.
Yes.
And it's, somebody always surprises me about like where they were, where they came from, whether it was, you know, bottom of the barrel, they were living the good life or whatever it was. And so it's just really like expanded my mind and my heart and just given me an appreciation for like everybody.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't know if I went off track there.
No. No, that's perfect. What, now, were you ever, unhoused? Were you ever in that situation?
Sort of. I never had to like sleep in a tent or, you know, sleep under a tree or anything like that. I didn't have a car and I didn't have a license and I didn't have a home, but I was lucky enough to, you know, have enough people in the area where like, you know, I could kind of go from house to house or couch to couch and shower here, shower there. So I feel super lucky and yeah, super lucky I didn't have to live as rough as some of the people that I experience now.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess last question would be, you know, because we know that, and we hope that there are people who are watching this that, you know, this is the whole reason why we're doing this, is so that it can get out in the community and people can say, oh, wow, okay, I'm hearing stories of real people and how they got hope and healing, you know. So, what would be a message that you would want to give, especially to, I mean, well, anyone using, but especially to young women out there? And I know, right, that's a loaded question because there's so much you'd want to say, but what are a few things, like, one or two things that you would want to definitely have them hear tonight?
Um, I guess the first thing is, as long as you have air in your lungs, like, it's never too late. That's
So
one
good.
lesson that I learned from my ex that passed away. There was a time where he was just like, I can't turn around. I can't go back. I can't do it again. I can't get clean. And not until he was dead
Mm.
did I realize, like, holy moly, like, you really can't come back from this. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And it
Yeah.
wasn't, uh, I understood death, but I didn't understand it to that degree when you
Mhm.
lose somebody that close to you. Um, I would say it's never too late. It doesn't matter how old you are, doesn't matter how young you are. Everybody's worth it.
Yes. Yes.
Everybody's worth it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that. It's never too late. It's never
Never.
too late. And the thing that will be the message that Richie's going to be talking to us about tonight is breaking that chain of fear. And I think sometimes it's those fears that tell us those things, that it's too late, can't go back, I'm too far gone. So it'll be great to listen to what Richie has to say about breaking that chain of fear. And Aaron, thank you so much for sharing your story. We're going to be back with Aaron after Richie's presentation, and so type in the chat what your questions are for Aaron, and she'll answer those when we come back. So, but now we'll listen to Richie's presentation.
So far, we've seen to live an unchained life, we need to break through the denial with honesty. We've got to break through unbelief with hope and belief. We have to break through the insanity with faith and willingness. And now we're going to look at the importance of breaking through the fear with courage. There is an acronym for the word fear. Forget everything and run, or face everything and recover. Everybody has that choice right now. We either allow the fear to forget everything and run away, or face everything and recover. Nothing keeps us chained to addiction and dysfunction like fear. In every of the Gospels, there is a story that is recorded, several scenes, in fact, of the disciples on the Sea of Galilee in a storm, and they're always scared to death. Matthew, the 14th chapter, verse 24, it says, the disciples were in trouble, far away from land, for a strong wind had risen, and they were fighting heavy waves. Have you been fighting heavy waves this last week, this last year? You are not alone. You see, living an unchained life doesn't mean no storms. It just means that we no longer have to go through the storms alone. 3 points we're going to learn today that can break through our fear. 1, God speaks to the storm that you are in. He speaks to you in the storm, and God speaks to the storm that is in you. All right? Nothing more than that. The voice in the storm can give you courage to make it through your storm. First, let's look at He speaks to the storm you are in. In Luke 8:22, it says, one day He got into a boat with His disciples, and He said to them, let us go across to the other side of the lake. And so they set out. Jesus wants to take you to the other side. He wants to take you from your current situation, your current problem, to the other side. He wants to take you to that next place of freedom and peace. But the only way He can do that is if you're willing to let go of the safety of the seashore. You may feel safer docked at the harbor, but the last time I checked, boats were made for sailing. Man, life was made for living. God made you for something more than being chained to something. And for too long, we've allowed fear to keep us locked up and landlocked and keeping us from going where God wants to take us. Listen to me. If God tells you to go over, you can never go under. Luke 8:23, as they sailed and fell asleep, and a windstorm came down on the lake, and they were filling with water and were in danger. The Sea of Galilee is still known for storms that will show up suddenly. going from smooth and sunny to rough and stormy. You know what? That sounds a lot like life, doesn't it? The bad diagnosis, the affair that you found out about, the arrest, the lost job, the lost home, panic attack, depression. In an instant, our world gets turned upside down and we desperately try to hold it together, but we can't. We're just like these disciples. We're trying to stay afloat, but we're taking on too much water in our boat. And so they went, in Luke 8:24, they went and woke him saying, Master, Master, we are perishing. I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. And so they wake Jesus up, Luke 8:24, and he awoke and rebuked the wind and the raging waves, and they ceased, and there was calm. Friends, it is safer in the storm with God than to stay on the shore without him. To live a more fulfilling life, it is better to go through the storm with God than to stay on the shore alone. Mark 4:39 records Jesus saying, Peace, be still. But when you look at what it actually says there, Jesus was telling the storm to shut up. You see, when Jesus speaks up, the storm shuts up. Mark 4:39, it says that the wind ceased and there was a great calm. God wants you to experience great calm, great courage, a great life, not just any life. The next time a storm shows up, ask God to tell it to shut up. The depression, the bad mood, the addiction, the bill collectors. You know, after I got clean, the wreckage from my stormy addiction had left all kinds of damage. And it got so overwhelming. Man, I had a stack of bills that started piling up on the counter in my kitchen. I felt like I was drowning. I felt like these disciples. And so I went to my sponsor and I told him about it. I said, man, I'm getting overwhelmed with these bills that I'm going to have to pay. And I'll never forget what he told me. He said, Richie, you do what you can and you give the rest to God and he'll do what he can. And if seeing the bills is overwhelming, Richie, just throw them away. Don't worry, they'll send you another one next month. And that's what I did, man. I just threw them away. And hey, they did, right on time, sent me another bill next month. And I just worked on one bill at a time, until, hallelujah, man, I paid all those bills off. You need to know, friends, that you have a power in your corner that is bigger than your problems. Let him speak to the storm you are in right now. Don't let the fear overwhelm you. Let him speak to the storm. Let him tell your storm to shut up, and it'll listen up. Second point, to have courage, is God speaks to you in the storm. So he speaks to the storm you are in, and now he speaks to you in the storm. We have the same disciples. They're on the same body of water, only this time Jesus sends them on by themselves. They think that they're all alone. It says, when evening came, the boat was out on the sea. Jesus was alone on the land. Now, according to Matthew and John, Jesus goes into the mountain to pray when he sends the disciples on. So from the disciples' perspective, Jesus is nowhere around. But check it out. In verse 48 of Mark, it says, he saw that they were making headway painfully, for the wind was against him. You see, just because you can't see God doesn't mean God can't see you. From the disciples' perspective, they were alone. But from God's perspective, he had never taken his eyes off the disciples. You see, God sees when the storms in your life get rough, and that's when he shows up. According to verse 48, the reason making headway was painful is because the wind was against him. Sometimes life, the wind is against you. It feels like the whole world is out to get you. John tells us in his gospel that the disciples have to start rowing. Listen to me. When the wind starts working against you, taking you in a direction you know you don't want to go, that's your cue to start rowing too. When it's not as easy to go to meetings as it once was, that's your cue to start rowing. When it's harder to keep praying, you don't feel like your prayers are making it past the ceiling, man, that's your cue to start praying. The harder things get, the more we need to be rowing. When someone invites you to drinks after work, don't go with them. Don't go with the flow. You got to start rowing. When old behaviors start returning, that's your cue to start rowing. You know, sometimes recovery comes to us easy. There's certain things that are like, hey, this is great. I love it. You know, a lot of people would come up to me, you know, they had 30 days clean. They're like, I love life. I want to hear you say that after 10 years clean. You know, sometimes life is easy. Sometimes it isn't. Other times it's like the wind is against us. And that's when you've got to start rowing. We are responsible for our own life. You are responsible, so start rowing. We are a product of our own decisions. Start rowing. Recovery is hard work. Breaking chains isn't easy, but let me tell you, it's worth it. What are you waiting for? It's time to start rowing. Don't let the unexpected problems and fears of life keep you from living an unchained life. When the going gets tough, the tough get rowing. You do what you can, and then let God do what He can. Mark 6:48, it says that it was about the fourth watch of the night, and He came to them walking on the sea. So check this out. The waves are crashing, but Jesus is strolling. You need to know that when the storm is crazy, God is not crazy. When the world seems out of control, God is not out of control. Mark 6:49-50, it says, but when they saw him walking on the sea, they thought it was a ghost and cried out, for they all saw him and were terrified. But immediately he spoke to them and said, take heart, it is I. Do not be afraid. Check it out. Jesus speaks to you in the storm. What does He say? His words are, don't be afraid. Take courage. I am here. The spiritual principle that breaks through the chain of fear is courage. Don't be afraid. Take courage. I am here. You don't know how you're ever going to get clean? Don't be afraid. Take courage. God is there. You don't know how you're ever going to be able to salvage your marriage? Don't be afraid. Take courage. God is there. You don't know how you're going to pay that rent? Don't be afraid. Take courage. God is there. You see, He speaks to you in the storm. Matthew 14:28 says, and Peter answered Him, Lord, if it is you, command me to come to you on the water. You see, Peter's being tossed back and forth on the boat, but he sees Jesus walking on the waves. You see, Peter wants to do to the waves what Jesus is doing. Peter wants to walk on his storm like Jesus is walking on this storm. And check it out. Jesus speaks to him and He says, come. So Peter got out of the boat and he walked on the water and he came to Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid. Fear never completely goes away. It always can show up at unexpected times and unexpected places. When he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, Lord, save me. You see, when Peter stopped focusing on his goal and he started focusing on his problem, when he started taking his eyes off of his goal and he started focusing on his opposition, that's when he started sinking. Keep your eyes off the problem and get them on the solution. Take your eyes off what's going wrong with your life and focus on what's going right with your life. You see, courage is not the absence of fear. It's walking through the fear. So it doesn't mean that the fear goes away. It's just you keep moving forward in spite of the fear. You know, people often kind of look down at Peter when he sinks. You know, they're just like, oh, there that Peter goes again. But you know what? At least Peter got out of the boat. You know, the Bible doesn't say how many steps Peter took on the water, but the Bible does say Peter walked on the water. I don't see the Bible saying that about anyone else. You see, there are those who would like to criticize Peter for sinking, but they never started walking. There are those who will criticize you for your recovery. They will criticize you for your belief. They're going to criticize you for your faith. They're going to criticize you for trying to live a life unchained. But listen, they were too scared to get out of the boat. And so to take the attention off of them, they're just going to sit there and criticize you. When the haters start hating, that's your cue to keep walking. You know what? I may not have walked as much as I would have liked to have walked, but at least I walked a little. You haven't walked at all. And you know what? it actually never says that Peter sank. In Matthew 14:30, it says, beginning to sink, he cried out. There is a big difference between almost sinking and being sunk. There's a big difference between almost using and using. There's a big difference between almost cheating and cheating. So the moment you start sinking, do what Peter did. He cried out, Lord, save me. When you start craving, cry out, God save me. When you start wanting to use, call your sponsor and say, save me. When you want to start spending, don't wait until you're in the mall to say, Lord, save me. Say, Lord, save me when you're getting into your car to drive to the mall. When you start resenting, cry out, Lord, save me. Shout, save me the second you start sinking. I can't, he can, I think I'll let him. And I love it. Matthew 14:31 says Jesus immediately. You see, when we call out to God, help always comes. Not always the way we want it to come, but always the way we need it to come. Matthew 14:31 saying to him, "O you of little faith, why did you doubt?" Now, what's interesting about this is when you read the actual Greek, the phrase to him is not there. Now, I'm sure the translators, they're a lot smarter than I am, and they probably know what they're doing when they say that Jesus is directing this at Peter. But you know what? Maybe, just maybe, Jesus wasn't talking to Peter. In my kind of cynical mind, I envision Jesus as he's reaching down to help Peter, who actually did walk on the water. He's actually looking at the other 11 still sitting on the boat. Oh, you of little faith. I mean, at least Peter got out of the boat and walked a little. Friends, it's better to try and fail than to never try at all. I have never met anyone who regretted attempting something courageous, even when they failed at it. The greatest regret people have in life is that they never tried at all. You see, it's usually from our failures that we learn. Often we look down at failures, like failures are so terrible. We demonize failures. Let me tell you, failure isn't fun, but failure is absolutely necessary because it's usually from our failures that we learn what to do next time. It's usually from our failures that we learn, you know what, I can't take my eyes off Jesus. Jesus speaks to the storm you are in. He speaks to you in the storm. Last point, to give you unbelievable courage to break the chain of fear, is Jesus speaks to the storm that is in you. You know what? The worst storms I have ever faced in my life are the storms that are on the inside. The worst storms you will ever face are the ones. We are our own worst enemies. Nobody can kick us like we can kick ourselves. Let me tell you, your addiction will never stop coming at you. Your pride will never stop trying to get back in there. Your control problem will never stop coming at you. I often hear people in recovery say, you know what, my disease is outside these rooms doing push-ups, waiting, just waiting for when I'll let down my guard. Addiction will come at you with everything that it's got. The enemy will come at you when you least expect it, trying to overwhelm you with fear. He'll try to rob you of perspective. Man, in 1 John 3:20, it says our own heart condemns us. You know what? We can't always trust our feelings. Often our own feelings work against us. Suddenly, our perspective is messed up. Fear starts taking over our lives. New healthy habits are replaced by old unhealthy ones. New attitudes quickly replaced by old familiar ones. And suddenly we realize addiction is trying to drown you. And that's when you need to listen to God's voice speaking to the storm that is in you. Isaiah 59:19, it says that when the enemy comes in like a flood, the Spirit of the Lord will lift up a standard against him. In ancient times, a standard was a flag, and it was actually used to communicate during a battle. It communicated this basic message: your king is alive, keep marching, we're still fighting, move forward, and victory will be ours. In the storms of life, when the enemy comes in like a flood, I want you to remember your standard. The standard of the cross and an empty tomb. You see, the empty tomb, the resurrection is a promise that your worst day is never your last day. Our standard communicates the King is alive, keep marching, keep fighting. Victory is ours because victory was His. You see, the only storm that could have ever really destroyed you, Jesus let kill Him on Calvary. Which means no matter how rough the storms in your life get, one thing's for sure, it cannot destroy you forever. Stop letting the chain of fear keep you from leaving the shore. No matter how bad the storm is, it is better on the other side with Jesus. No matter how rough the storm gets, remember the voice in the storm to have courage to push through the fear. Psalms 93:4 says, mightier than the raging of the seas, mightier than the breakers on the shore, the Lord above is mightier than all of these.
Thank you, Richie. I love that message of that we can't always trust our feelings. You know, I know that my feelings are like a roller coaster some days, and how he talked about even the fear of failure. We shouldn't fear failure. We learn the most in our failures, and sometimes those failures happen so that we can change the trajectory of the path that we're on, to say, hey, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to go there again. Erin, who was sharing with us, that she was just like, I don't want to live this way. I don't want to go back to that. So instead of using that to paralyze us, we get to use it to say, no, I'm not going to be that. I'm going to go forward and do something different. So I love how Richie talked about all these different aspects of breaking that chain of fear, because fear is a paralyzer. It is a paralyzer. So thank you, Richie, for that. And thank you guys for tuning in tonight. Thank you for registering, and thank you for commenting on the chat and for your great questions that came in for Erin. So I want to get to some of these for Erin. Erin, the first one that came in, or that I picked, was, were you a part of a 12-step recovery process? And if so, would you be willing to kind of share a story of one of your amends?
So I've been a part of, I've experienced a lot of 12-step programs, AA, NA, CA. I have in the past, I've done some step work. I may do some step work here in the future.
Okay.
But I've really have found a lot lot of support in a women's group that I go to in
wonderful.
Everett, in a DV support group, and that has been really good for my recovery. The first thing that pops into my head as far as making amends is my family and my kids.
Yeah.
Doing right by them. My family has set boundaries with me, but every time I've come back around, they've always been there for me. And it may not always be the way that I want them to be there, or kind of that evolves over time, but I want to do the next right thing for my kids and for my family.
Yes. Yeah. Awesome. And that's what kind of keeps you motivated to, you think of your kids. Yeah. You think of that they're a good motivator to.
They are. Yeah. I mean, myself too. Like, don't get me wrong. I want to do good for myself. And doing good for myself in turn is just good for them.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
that's right. Another question that came in is, what are some of your daily practices that help you stay in recovery?
Working in recovery is what it is. I mean, it's not everything for my recovery. I do like to read the Just for Today's from NA. I have my Bible next to my bed. I will maybe just flip through and read one. You know what I mean? And if it speaks to me, which it always does. And I guess that's what I can think of right now. Yeah. I mean, I get my nails done. I do my little self-care stuff. You know what I mean?
And that's important.
It is important. It's important to me.
Yeah, absolutely. The last question is, do you have a process? This is kind of like two, but do you have a process you follow for when you may feel like attacked through the day? Like, when those negative thoughts are coming in or fears trying to creep back in?
Um, yeah, I mean, I'm lucky with the position that I'm in, and over the last 2.5 years of my recovery, I have people that I can reach out to and that I can call. And my boss is my friend, and our boss is in recovery, and so it's created this culture. And
Mm,
I have people I can call and vent to, or try to talk a situation through that is also in recovery. And so the culture with my work is really good. um, and even like Roger and like I said, Mike over at Take the Next Step, like we come in contact with a lot of the same people, and sometimes it's great conversations, sometimes it's really frustrating, sometimes it's really heartbreaking. And having those relationships with people in the community and being able to like talk it through, and
mhm.
with and not giving specific information, but talk it through with people that understand what you're going through,
Yes.
just in general. So yeah,
Yes. Well, it sounds like you have an amazing community.
I think I
And
do.
yeah, it's that community that kind of helps you with that processing and keeps your uh good accountability,
Hmm.
So that's awesome.
Yeah.
I love hearing that because I really do think there's power, great power in community, and
Yeah.
it's so important to be in community.
Yeah.
So, well, thank you so much, Erin. Appreciate you so
Thank
much,
you.
and so excited to have you here and have you sharing with us and all of our viewers. And we're so thankful for you guys that because without you the word's not getting out, and so we appreciate it. With you watching, the word gets out about this program. So continue to watch and continue to register so that more people can hear great stories like Erin and have hope. Tonight's winner, I wanted to let everyone know because for our drawing, is Jenna Windred. And I hope I'm saying your name right, Jenna Windred. So congratulations to you. And you won the book, The Darkness Will Not Overcome by Richie. And then also we'll have a little gift card in there for you as well. So we will get that to you. Make sure you get your contact information. To Amy, who is our virtual host, and we will make sure we get that right off to you. So thank you so much for registering, and we're so excited that you won the book tonight. So remember to be entered into this drawing each night to text Unchained to 534-444-7183. And I don't know about you, but I have been richly blessed this evening. And don't forget to join us tomorrow night at 7:30 p.m. Pacific Standard Time when we're going to look at our next breakthrough in breaking the chain of control. And we'll also be joined by Clint Dreger, and he's going to share some of his story of breaking free from the chains that once held him back. So it's going to be another exciting night tomorrow night. Please tune in. And before we close, as always, we'd like to share a list of resources with you. And so we hope that that's a help to you. I hope you've been able to jot those down, but they are there for you. Have a great evening. God bless. Thanks again, Erin, for being with us. And thanks to all of you. Good night.